Ideally, let's say a guy comes in fit and he hasn't had that much of a workload going into the season. Ideally, what sort of rest periods are you talking about? Because from a fan's perspective, it's literally game after game after game. You hardly get 2-3 weeks without any action.
Yeah, normally if you can have a pre-season break, so normally when the URC finishes and you can have 4 to 5 weeks complete off, no rugby, that's the ideal situation. But we rarely get that nowadays. So we more or less work on the soccer basis where how you keep the players fit over a period of time. So doing less work in the week is probably your best answer to that. Going through if you can have a 4 to 6 week break and then you can have an 8 to a 12 week pre-season is optimal for us to perform during the season, because you wanna deserve the right to have a high load, and that you build up throughout your pre-season break. So if you didn't have a pre-season like last year, we had a very short pre-season with a Currie Cup in between. That makes it very difficult to keep the guys fresh for longer, and with the Springboks playing, so managing those kind of loads is very difficult. But luckily we have a good relationship with the Springboks and with our Currie Cup team, so then we sort of manage the loads and give the players breaks in between.
The demands on those, let's just talk about the 3 levels: Currie Cup, URC, and Champions Cup. In terms of intensity, there are different levels, and again, we're asking our players to a player that will be part of, let's say not the Currie Cup per se, but the URC and Champions. That's quite a lot physically, because rugby is very hard on the body. For example, it's not like soccer whereby it's more cardio, whereby you need to run a bit longer. Talk to us about managing that.
I think the physical attributes are easier to manage. I think the biggest issue that we more normally have is the mental issue, because doing the same thing over and over sort of mentally breaks you down, and the monotonous of playing and training. Playing not that much, but training every single day takes it out of you. So mentally you got to keep them fresh with breaking up your week in different sections, trying to change your training patterns. That's the kind of thing that you do. And obviously trying to have more fun in your sessions. That's probably the biggest issue that you can have in a team like this, is you got to build in fun activities during your season, and change your week program around so that you can keep them fresh.
Wear and tear is a real thing, especially in physical sports like this. But you guys are tasked with managing those bodies and making sure that they're not always going to be at the optimum, but they're in very good condition. Talk to us about the challenges that we don't have that ideal situation, and players are being asked to play different competitions which overlap, and all competitions have got a lot of things riding on them because of the stature of the competitions.
So for us at the Vodacom Bulls, we invest a lot in technology. So to measure and manage the on-field performance and the physical outputs, we look critically at our Catapult GPS system. So we look at our running loads and the intensity loads of how fast they're running and how hard they're running, as well as contact loads. So we look at that daily to try and almost put the puzzle pieces together and manage those on a daily basis. So we always look at our past seasons and the maximum outputs each player can do. So we give guys specific targets to see where they are on each day. So as they walk into the gym early morning, looking from a wellness perspective, so not only setting guys targets, but from a medical perspective each day, where guys stiff or where guys sore, and that's an ongoing process. So every single day we're constantly monitoring their bodies and monitoring their outputs. We look at loads from previous seasons to see what are their maximum values and on average what are guys covering, so that when we get to the tough parts of the season and we demand a lot from their bodies, or we look at this phase for example where we play a lot of South African teams, we can sort of manage those loads and manage it on a daily basis. It is a challenge, but we get a lot of communication with the coaches, with the medical team and fitness to put that whole picture together. I think the one challenge as well that people don't realize is fans and spectators, they just see the matches, whereas for us to get guys competitive for matches, we have to surpass the demands of the game. So our training, especially on a Tuesday, Thursday, often is a lot harder than what you'd expect in a match. So to also try and prepare guys for the training and then to also see it through in the match, that you really have to be creative and good communications, managing those puzzle pieces each day.
When you compare yourselves to other teams and other unions, whether it's New Zealand, Australia, or even the guys who play in the URC, what are they getting right that we're getting wrong? What edge do they have that we don't have? Like, we can sit and look at the fixture list, but at some point that's our reality and we recruit according to that fixture list. From a physical perspective, when you sit and you say, guys at Munster, this is what they're doing, because we put you on the same level.
I think one of the aspects also to consider a lot, specifically for South African teams, is the travel. So if you take a normal sedentary person and you put them on a plane and they travel for 12, 14 hours, they'll feel that jet lag and, they'll just struggle with basic office work. For these, professional athletes, their body is their business. So you put them on a 12-hour flight and the expectation is that then they've got to build up and, almost play the same intensity as if it was home. That can be really challenging in terms of recovery and trying to bounce them back and managing facilities. Because the reality is travel does play a big toll, and certainly we try and look at each player individually on how to get him to bounce back. One of the aspects we know from international teams is that it's easy for them to fly between opposition, whereas us, we will spend 3-4 days, often a week, and that's really sort of unheard of for European teams to spend a week before playing opposition. So that's certainly unique challenges we have to face, traveling and getting a training facility there to try and manage that load. The reality is that when you travel, you can't train the same as if you're at Loftus. You don't have the same bed, you don't have the same food, same training facilities. You often have to hop on a bus and travel 30 minutes just to get to the field, train, climb back 30 minutes. So us as fitness coaches, we often have to manage those aspects, especially to make sure guys don't cramp and they don't cover as much walking load between facilities or even in the hotel.
Just taking it a step further, from a national perspective, we always worry about the guys who are active both at the Bulls and the Springboks. They basically, their workload is a lot higher in higher intensity situations. You've got a lot of those players, those kind of players here. How do you manage that? Because you need to keep the guy, again, you're not looking just at 1 year, it's over a 3-year period whereby a guy like Kenan Moody, first year when he's starting out, he is bolting out of everything, but 2 years down the line, this guy's had a bit of wear and tear, he's got a couple of niggles here and there, he's not going to be as explosive. How do you manage that and what is the best way to do that?
So we have very good communication with the box. So before players go to camp, we send information through in terms of training loads and even conversations on how we manage guys and what their expectations are, and certainly where we're building them towards. When they're at the BOK camp, we also keep good communication in terms of what they're seeing, so that when we get them back, we can almost try to continue or manage it. They normally give suggestions as well in terms of which periods they need to rest, and our coaching staff also have good communication there to make sure that they have specific rest periods. And that's up for us to then manage the squad with the coaches in terms of the coming fixtures on when the international guys need to take a break, and then certainly for us as fitness guys, where to plug them back into the program to make sure that they don't climb in and they're completely overloaded, but we make sure we build them up nicely. And certainly looking at a 3-4 week cycle or a 3-4 year cycle, we get clear physical expectations of the guys to make sure how are their bodies adapting, what are they experiencing during the game. When they go to the Springboks, what are they experiencing there? When we come back, how to get them stronger and faster. So that communication in terms of expectations physically of the players is often very key for us. And then just making sure that we manage to plug in specific rest periods for the guys.